What is the essence of gender? Is there one indispensable factor that defines us as male or female? Is it something that we can measure in our blood? Is it something that's written in the code of our DNA? Or is it something about our physiology? This anatomy and you're male, that anatomy and you're female? Or is it a perfect performance, a daily reenactment of a gendered script that you were given the day you were born? I've spent the last 20 years of my career trying to answer this question: what is the essence of gender? I've collected mountains of data. I've read a lot of papers, and I've interviewed thousands of people about their gender. And about 2 years ago, I had one of the most wonderful aha moments of my career. I realized that at once, gender is both more complex and simpler than I had ever understood it before. I'm a psychologist, and I specialize in behavioral neuroendocrinology. I do research looking at the effects of hormones on fetal brain development. I teach the same topic, and I have a clinical practice where I help people whose bodies don't match their gender identity. So, what about this aha moment? I was having a conversation with this lovely young transgender person along with their parents. This young person, I'll call them H. H was born looking completely, typically like a little girl. H proceeded to explain to me why they believe that they should be prescribed male hormones and have surgery to remove their breasts. H's mother interrupted and said, "But tell her that you still want to wear makeup." H identifies as male. And without a blink or a waver, H continued to explain to me how they wanted to transition to live socially and physically as male. They wanted to have hormone therapy that would give them a deeper voice, more muscles, facial hair. H's mother interrupted again and said, "But you hate facial hair." To which H replied, "I want to shave it off." H explained to me that he wanted it to be clear that he was male, so that when he expressed his feminine side, he would not be mistaken as female. Let me repeat that to you. H wanted it to be clear that he was physically male, so that when he expressed his inner femininity, he would not be mistaken for a woman. Now, you probably understand that now gender is probably more complex than you thought it was before. How could H make it simpler? Well, I'm going to break it down for you, and you will understand, I promise. But first, you're going to need a crash course in sex differentiation and gender development. Okay? Let's start with conception. When an egg is fertilized, initiation down the developmental pathway as male or female is determined by the father. The mother will donate one of her 2 X chromosomes, and the father will donate an X or a Y. Either way, this zygote is undifferentiated until about week 7 of development. Now, if there is a Y chromosome, that Y will direct the development of a neutral bipotential gonad to become a testis, a male gonad. And that gonad will produce testosterone. And testosterone will direct the development of neutral bipotential internal reproductive structures and external genitalia to develop in the male direction. Now, if there isn't a Y, if instead we have 2 X chromosomes and there's no testosterone, development will proceed in the female direction. In other words, the default for human sex differentiation is female. Now, critically, The amount of movement along the spectrum toward typical male depends on the amount of testosterone that's present during this period of development. If there's only a little testosterone, or if there's a disruption, development will not proceed all the way along this continuum, and the appearance will be only partially typically male. Physical sex develops along a continuum. Now, what does this have to do with H's gendered presentation? Well, at the same time that our bodies are differentiating, our brains are also developing. And literally thousands of studies have shown that exposure to testosterone during critical periods of brain development influence the differentiation of different brain structures. And those structural changes can be linked to observable changes in behavior, specifically behaviors that show a sex difference. So while our bodies are differentiating, so too are our brains, and so too are our future behaviors. Of course, you understand that this isn't the whole story. We all understand that there are environmental and social inputs in our gender development. But you can think of it as a complex interaction of biological predispositions upon which the world acts. And this starts not long after conception. So let's move ahead to future development, okay? Sex-typed behavior can be conceptualized as 3 distinct domains. However, in popular culture, these domains are often conflated and confused. Also, people often think of gender development, masculinity, femininity as existing along opposite ends of a single spectrum. This is also misguided. Many aspects of gender development are multidimensional. Let's start with the first domain, and you'll see what I mean. Gender role refers to human behaviors and characteristics that differ on average between males and females. A very simple example is childhood play behavior. Compared to boys, girls are more likely to play with dolls and dishes. And compared to girls, boys are more likely to play with cars and trucks and weapons. Now, let's consider this in that multidimensional nature that I just mentioned, okay? I want you to think about yourself as a child. What kind of person were you? If you were a boyish person, and you liked rough and tumble play, and you liked cars and trucks, and you didn't like anything that was considered to be girly, I would put you here. High on masculinity and low on femininity. Let's say you were a more girly person. You liked dolls and dresses, you avoided boys, you avoided rough and tumble play. I'd put you here. High on femininity and low on masculinity. Let's say that you were the type of person who had a wide range of interests. You could run with the boys and you can hang with the girls. I'd put you here. High on masculinity and high on femininity. But let's say that altogether you were a different kind of kid. Instead, you spent your time reading books, making art, listening to music. I'd put you here. Not very high on either femininity or masculinity. But you can see that from your own development, that gender is multidimensional. Now, the second domain is gender identity. Gender identity refers to the very core sense of the self as male or female. Now, this is an aspect of human experience that shows a huge sex difference. The vast majority of individuals who are born looking like a typical male identify as boys and men, and the vast majority of individuals who are born looking like a typical female identify as girls and women. But it doesn't always follow this pattern. Some people identify with a gender other than that which they appeared at birth. Some people don't identify with this binary at all. These people would call themselves non-binary. The third domain is sexual orientation. And this refers to the attraction to males, to females, maybe to both, maybe to neither. Again, this aspect of human experience shows a huge sex difference. The vast majority of males are attracted to and partner with women. The vast majority of women are attracted to and partner with men. But it doesn't follow the same pattern. The strength and nature of these attractions are also multidimensional. What's important to remember is that there are 3 distinct domains of gender behavior. And they don't always align with one another, and they don't always line up with an individual's body. Just because somebody's born looking like a typical male doesn't mean they're going to be highly masculine and low in femininity. It doesn't mean they're going to be strongly attracted to females, and it certainly doesn't mean they're going to be solidly identified as male. So I think this might help us understand H's experience, but you need to know a little bit more about H. Growing up, H absolutely adored 2 older brothers. They ran around together, they played football together, they all played with the same toys. But at the same time, H loved spending summers with the grandmother, who taught H to cook and to sew. And as H really adored these brothers, H loved wearing the hand-me-down clothes and even asked to have a haircut to look like a boy, just like these 2 brothers. But as development progressed, H came to understand that this experience wasn't like other tomboys. H came to understand that they were similar to boys in a way that other girls were not similar to boys. And when H's body took a striking turn toward developing as a woman, H became increasingly distressed. H never wanted to grow up to be a woman and had always imagined they would grow up to be a man, just like their father, just like their brothers. So, back to my aha moment. I realized with H that given the vast complexity of gender development, of course this experience is natural, even inevitable. There are as many possible gender presentations as there are stars in the sky. H is a person who likes to cook and wear flowered t-shirts. H likes to play football. H has a boyfriend. H is in a band. H has a lovely smile. This is H, plain and simple. Now I want you to think over how the world has changed in the last 100 years. We have moved to a place of understanding and acceptance of variance in gender role behavior. Women can do almost anything that men can do these days. And we've moved to a place with sexual orientation, where same-sex unions are increasingly legally recognized in many parts around the world. And just as there's variance in gender role and sexual orientation, so too should there be variance in gender identity. There's no reason to believe that there shouldn't be variance here. It's just that this disconnect between the body and the inner gender experience is not easily observable, it's not easily revealed, and so we might not have known that it existed. Now, many of you might think that there has been a recent explosion in transgenderism in society. You might think that young people are now following a trend, but that's not the way I see it. In my practice, yes, I might see a 6-year-old person who was born looking like a typical boy, but who, with the love and support of their parents, is now living a happy childhood as a little girl. But on the same day, I will see a 75-year-old who was also born looking like a typical boy, but who believed their entire life that the world would not accept them if they wanted to change and live as female. And they decided now that before they died, they were going to live an authentic life. So I don't think it's happening anymore today. I believe that society is only now seeing the kaleidoscope of gender as it naturally exists. And I believe also that by becoming conscious of the natural, colorful complexity of the world around you, you too could have your experience of the world transformed from black and white or pink and blue to a kaleidoscope of color. Thank you. Mm-hmm.